short video which might explain to clients why shares can move so aggressively and actively on any given day. And I want to use Growthpoint, one of the property stocks, to illustrate this. This is what's known as an extract of a depth screen, which is really a trader's screen. And I'm going to talk you through it. It looks very busy, but it'll give you a bit of an idea as to what's happening. So if you look here where my cursor is, around here, this is what is known as the bid screen. And these are people who are prepared to buy Growthpoint. And so this is ranked in order of price, and you can see here, this is the highest price that's prepared to be paid today is R10.82 at this point in time, and it goes down to an investor down here at R10.65. The second column here is the volume. So linked with that price, the person is prepared to pay 25,000, they wish to buy 25,000 shares in Growthpoint. On this column is all the sellers. These are the people who are asking a price for the shares that they own. And again, it is ranked in terms of the price. So you can see there is an investor who wants R10.85 for Growthpoint, is prepared to sell 6,744, versus there's an investor who's looking for 25,000 shares of Growthpoint at R10 a share. So that's a 250,000 Rand deal. But here, if you look on this side, this seller is literally talking about an amount of 67,000 Rand. Right underneath it would be an investor who's round about the 25, just under 30,000 Rand volume. And any trader who's working on the market can see what we call this depth at any time. So they know who's selling and who's buying and how far they're apart from that perspective. And at any point, someone can remove this. So this investor might decide he wants to remove it, which would make the next trade at R10.86. Then if we look over here, this is the actual trade. And so it records the last trade, which was done at 3:30 on a volume of 2,654. So in other words, just under 30,000 Rands worth of shares, and it was traded at a price of R10.84. Now, whenever a share trades, R10.84 or whatever this share price was becomes the value or the market value of the share. So ultimately what you can see is that all that I need to have is if people are offering shares for sale in this column here, and very few people are interested in buying at that level, then the only thing that can happen is that the share price has to drop till it meets a buyer on the other side. And if all the buyers are sitting watching because they don't know what's going to happen, so let's say all the asset managers at this point who are sitting with new cash to invest are in a situation where they're not quite sure what's going to happen. They want to see what's going to happen in China. They want to see how the Americans are going to deal with the coronavirus, what's happening in Italy. Let's just take a wait-and-see approach. That means that those buyers, who are the bulk of the buyers, are out of the market, and the sellers would be really those people who are desperate to get out. Either they have to sell their portfolio out to fund something, maybe it's a deceased estate, maybe it's some machine trading because of an exchange-traded fund or passive fund. And so when you have much more sellers than there are buyers, then the only thing that happens is the share price drops. And as soon as the share price and a trade happens at that level, that is the share price for everybody, and their value becomes that. So let's illustrate this maybe with something that's a little bit easier for us. Let's assume you have a house that you believe is valued at R1 million, and you decide to put it on the market. But because of circumstances like these at the moment, investors are not rushing to buy new houses. They're not taking out new loans. They're not sure if they're going to keep their jobs. They're not sure if their businesses are going to be all right. So actually, most of the business buyers for your house are taking a wait and see. But some guy comes and looks at your house, and he's got a lot of choice. So he looks at maybe 10 houses who are all asking R1 million, and he's got a lot of choice, and he's the only buyer, and there's lots of sellers. So he comes to you and says, I'll offer you 500,000 for your house. Now, if you sell your house to him and accept his price, then you have made a R500,000 loss on the value of your house. If you refuse to sell him your house, you haven't lost anything. He's merely speculating because he's one buyer among many sellers, and so he's looking to get as low a price as he can. And there aren't many other buyers, so you don't have a lot of options. So let's say you were a forced seller. You had to sell for whatever reason. Maybe it was to rescue your business, or to bail out something else, or to make sure that your business got over a tough time. If you were a forced seller and he was the only buyer and you had to sell, then you would make that loss. But if you're not a forced seller, and maybe you're getting a rental on that house, which you can continue to enjoy even though you could only sell it for 500,000, then you have the luxury of waiting until more buyers come into the market. And that's exactly what's happening here. Now, at some point, the whole thing turns. So we'll get to a point where things will become a little bit less mystifying. People will be more aware of what's happening. We'll be seeing what's happening in China. We'll be seeing what's happening in America and Europe. We'll have a better idea of lockdown, of so many other things. And we'll be able to get a better idea of what's good value in terms of buying a share. At that point, generally all the panicked sellers are gone, and it's all the people who are holding. At that point, you might get all the asset managers start to buy with conviction. They might be buying now, but not with a lot of conviction. But at that point, they might be prepared to buy with conviction based on the price. Now, if you switch around and you get too many buyers and not enough sellers, then the only thing that can happen is that the share price rises quite aggressively, because the buyers go, well, if I can't get it there, push it a little bit higher, push it a little bit higher. And if everyone's doing that at the same time, we can see an aggressive recovery. And so understanding the depth of what's happening behind with the buyers and sellers can be very, very useful to understanding how market values drop like they do when buyers are sitting out and sellers are plentiful. So I hope you find that helpful as